Imagine you are standing in a crowded elevator in the middle of July. The doors close. It is perfectly quiet. And then it hits you. A sharp, pungent, deeply offensive smell of stale sweat radiating from the person standing right next to you. You instinctively hold your breath, desperately watching the floor numbers slowly tick up, praying for escape. We have all been there. In modern society, there is almost no social crime worse than smelling bad. We associate body odor with failure, laziness, and a complete lack of civilization. So naturally, if you rewind the clock 10,000 years and imagine standing next to a prehistoric caveman, you would probably expect to faint. After all, they didn't have hot showers, they didn't have antibacterial soap, they didn't have lavender-scented antiperspirants, they hunted wild animals, wore unwashed animal hides, and spent their entire lives sweating in the dirt. Modern logic tells us that ancient humans must have been walking biological disasters, constantly surrounded by a visible green cloud of absolute stench. But did they? Did ancient humans actually smell bad? The answer to that question is not just a piece of historical trivia. It is a terrifying window into one of the most successful, multi-billion-dollar psychological scams ever pulled on the human race. Because the truth is, ancient humans did not smell like the sweaty guy in the elevator. In fact, if you stood next to a prehistoric hunter-gatherer, they wouldn't smell offensive at all. They would smell like damp earth, wood smoke, and a faint, surprisingly pleasant, musky scent. To understand why, you have to understand a fundamental lie you have been told your entire life. You have been taught that sweat smells bad. It doesn't. Human sweat is completely 100% odorless. It is just water, salt, and a few trace minerals. When you run a marathon or sit in a sauna, the liquid pouring out of your pores has absolutely no scent whatsoever. The foul, onion-like stench we call body odor does not come from you. It comes from bacteria, specifically a type of bacteria called Staphylococcus hominis. These microscopic scavengers live in your armpits. When you sweat, they drink the odorless liquid, break down the proteins, and excrete a chemical called thioalcohol. Let me translate that for you. Body odor is literally bacteria feces. You do not smell bad. The bacteria eating your sweat smell bad. But here is where the ancient world was entirely different from ours. Our prehistoric ancestors were covered in a thick, invisible, and highly complex jungle of microscopic life called the human microbiome. Today, we view all bacteria as the enemy. But for ancient humans, this bacterial jungle was their ultimate biological armor. Their skin was rich in a specific type of beneficial bacteria called ammonia-oxidizing bacteria, or AOB. These good bacteria acted like a microscopic cleaning crew. They feasted on the ammonia in human sweat and converted it into nitrite and nitric oxide. This process completely neutralized any foul odors. Ancient humans had a perfectly balanced, self-cleaning ecosystem on their skin. The good bacteria vastly outnumbered the bad bacteria. There was no room for the foul-smelling Staphylococcus to thrive. Furthermore, this natural scent was biologically crucial. The faint, earthy pheromones secreted by ancient humans were how they recognized each other, how they formed social bonds, and most importantly, how they chose their mates. Subconsciously smelling a healthy immune system in a partner was the ancient version of swiping right on a dating app. They weren't dirty. They were biologically perfect. So what happened? If our bodies were perfectly designed to keep themselves clean and odor-free, why do we wake up today terrified of our own natural scent? Why do you have an entire arsenal of chemical weapons sitting on your bathroom shelf? To find the answer, we don't look at biology. We look at a group of men in sharp suits sitting in a corporate boardroom in the 1920s. Welcome to the birth of the modern hygiene empire, a masterclass in weaponized shame. In the late 19th century, a powerful surgical antiseptic was invented. It was harsh, aggressive, and highly effective at killing germs on hospital floors. It was also used to treat gonorrhea. It was called Listerine. For decades, the company struggled to make serious money. You can only sell so much floor cleaner. But in the 1920s, the owner's son, Gerard Lambert, had a dark, brilliant realization. He realized that you can't sell a cure unless people believe they have a disease. So, Lambert's advertising executives opened a medical dictionary and found an obscure Latin term for bad breath, halitosis. Before the 1920s, bad breath was just considered a minor normal nuisance of daily life. Nobody cared. But Listerine launched a massive, aggressive advertising campaign that framed halitosis as a deadly social disease. They printed posters of beautiful, depressed women staring out of windows with giant text warning that she was always a bridesmaid, never a bride, because of her invisible, foul breath. They created a culture of deep, paralyzing paranoia. They convinced millions of people that their friends were secretly disgusted by them, but were just too polite to say it. It worked flawlessly. In just 7 years, Listerine's revenues skyrocketed from $100,000 to over $4 million. They didn't just sell a liquid. They invented a social anxiety, and the rest of the corporate world was taking notes. At the exact same time, a woman named Edna Murphy was trying to sell a liquid antiperspirant called odorono, which her father had originally invented to keep surgeons' hands from sweating during operations. Edna tried to sell it to the general public, but nobody bought it. Why? Because in 1910, people thought sweating was healthy. It was a natural bodily function. If you smelled a little bit, you just washed your armpits with simple soap and water. But Edna hired a slick advertising copywriter named James Webb Young. He looked at Listerine's success and decided to use the exact same psychological weapon, shame. Young created the Whisper Copy campaign. He placed advertisements in elite women's magazines. The ads didn't talk about sweat. They talked about reputation. They featured wealthy, elegant women looking distressed, warning that a single drop of sweat on your dress could ruin your social standing forever. They coined a terrifying new acronym, BO body odor. The ads explicitly told women that if they didn't use odorono, they were disgusting, unlovable, and would end up alone. The public backlash was initially massive. Women canceled their magazine subscriptions, calling the ads deeply offensive and insulting. But despite the outrage, sales exploded by 112% in a single year. The fear worked. Once they had successfully terrified women into blocking their sweat glands, the corporations turned their sights on men. The strategy shifted. For men, body odor wasn't about losing a husband. It was about losing a job. Advertisements showed men being fired by their bosses or getting rejected after a job interview, entirely because of the invisible demon of BO. In the span of a few decades, human biology was successfully rebranded as a corporate crime. But the psychological manipulation was only phase 1. Phase 2 was the biological trap, and this is where the scam becomes truly sinister. When you apply a modern clinical antiperspirant, you are not just masking a smell. You are applying aluminum salts directly to your skin. These salts dissolve in your sweat, melt into a thick gel, and physically plug your sweat glands like a cork in a bottle. You are forcing toxins to remain trapped inside your body. But what about when you take a shower? The soap companies convinced you that you need to be squeaky clean. To achieve that feeling, modern soaps are packed with harsh, synthetic surfactants. When you scrub your skin with these chemicals, you absolutely obliterate the acid mantle of your skin. You completely wipe out the ancient, beneficial, ammonia-oxidizing bacteria that your ancestors relied on. You are dropping a biological nuclear bomb on your own microbiome. And here is the punchline. Here is the multi-billion-dollar genius of the trap. When you destroy the good bacteria, the environment on your skin becomes completely unbalanced. And guess which bacteria survives the chemical fallout, comes back faster, and thrives in this new damaged environment? Staphylococcus hominis, the exact bacteria that causes the horrific smell. By obsessively washing away your natural microbiome with harsh chemicals, you actually make your sweat smell infinitely worse. Your body attempts to recover, but the bad bacteria multiply out of control, creating a sharper, more pungent stench than a caveman could ever possibly produce. So what do? You panic. You feel dirty. You feel the shame the 1920s ad executives programmed into you. So you buy more antibacterial soap, you scrub harder, you apply a thicker layer of aluminum antiperspirant. You destroy your microbiome again. You are stuck in an infinite, self-perpetuating loop. The hygiene industry created a problem, sold you the cure, and the cure perfectly ensures that the problem never ever goes away. It is a biological subscription model, and you are paying for it with your health and your wallet. Today, the global deodorant and antiperspirant market is worth nearly $30 billion. The global soap and body wash market is worth over $40 billion. The executives running these mega corporations are building mansions and buying private jets, entirely funded by your manufactured insecurity. They look at you the same way a casino owner looks at a gambling addict. As long as you keep pulling the lever, as long as you keep scrubbing off your natural defenses, they keep making money. The ancient humans sitting in their caves didn't smell like roses, but they didn't smell like rotting onions either. They were balanced. They were in harmony with their own biology. You are not a dirty, defective creature that needs to be sterilized and masked by synthetic chemicals. You are a biological masterpiece, honed by millions of years of evolution. Your body knows exactly how to take care of itself. Stop apologizing for your biology. Stop paying corporations to destroy your natural armor. Reclaim your skin and step out of the trap.